And good evening. Welcome to Let's Talk Real Talk on Parental Alienation and Family Court Abuse. I'd like to invite sorry, I'm having problems with my feedback here. So I'd like to invite our special guest tonight. It's Heidi Weber from Minnesota. And Heidi is here to talk to us about whistleblowing and the experience she has gone through. Her alienating story is a little different than most of us, but we do have children who become alienators and use their siblings to put on their side in order to get validation from the alienating parent. They are probably the ones that haven't been, in my case, haven't been recognized or treated right in the family growing up. So this is their way of saying, hey, dad, or hey, mom, look at me, I'm helping you. So let's welcome Heidi Weber tonight here.
Hello. Hello.
Hi,
Thank you
Heidi.
so much. Thank you so much, Mary, for having me. I'm honored to be on here and share my story.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So give us a run on how this all happened, like how long ago, and what you could tell us about your story.
Well, I'm a board registered and certified medical assistant, and I practiced for several years in healthcare and became a dean of a college system. I had 1,800 students. I was redoing a curriculum for medical assisting. And I found a bunch of fraud at this college. I was quickly promoted. So um, when they made me leave my dad's funeral, I just to go to an accreditation conference, and my dad was a very important person in my life. Then I decided I had to blow the whistle. I couldn't deal with, I couldn't see what I was seeing and not say something or speak up. And I was like, maybe they'll change. Maybe they'll, you're naive. You think maybe they'll do the right thing, and maybe they don't know about this. And there was a lot of false documenting and false reporting and admissions people that were really pushing people. There's all kinds of fraud and corruption. So I blew the whistle. 2 years later, I ended up going through, and my case was a public whistleblower case. So um, a lot of whistleblower cases are sealed or they're not available in the public. So nobody really knows about them or, what happens, at least in the US here, um, until way after it's over. Well, mine was public throughout the whole time. Um, 2 years later, we went to trial, and it's probably a few weeks before trial, the windows were shot out on my car. Um, Brake lines were cut on my husband's truck. I had somebody following me every day, everywhere I went. And these were when my kids were little. They were, well, not little, but they were younger, middle school, junior high age. Um, the middle one was. I have three daughters, and they're all 12 years apart between the three of them. So there's a span there. But we made it through the trial, and the jury was unanimous on my side. Um, and I got my life back. I ended up becoming friends with the head of the foreman of the jury that heard my case, and she's a great lady. And the jury was wonderful; they were great. Um, and so we ended up going through another. Of course, the school was not happy about that. And this is a school where, when I was dean, there was 10,000 students there at that time. So um, now they're closed. The attorney general. We went through 2 years of appeals, almost all the way to the state Supreme Court, which they upheld my verdict. So thank goodness. And the attorney general got a hold of me and subpoenaed me and said she was filing her own case against the schools and she was going to shut them down. And that's exactly what she did. So I testified at her trial as well. And so after the whistleblower, of course, I had a lot of media contacts and a lot of media getting a hold of me, but I really wanted to distance myself from a lot of that because I wanted my girls to have the most normal, I didn't want to have this hanging over, them. And so I didn't accept a lot of interviewing and stuff like that after a while. Well, flash forward, my trial was in 2013. So if that gives you it's been a little while now, 11 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so in 2018, CBS got a hold of me, and my girls were already starting to be a little, the oldest one especially, she had just gotten married in 2016. And ever since she's been married, she started changing, really changing. And really, not bad. I wouldn't say bad. Um, she just started, getting her own life. And I thought, okay, this is great. This is the way it's supposed to be. She wasn't contacting me as much. And my girls really depended on my husband and I, which we've been married for 30 years, depended on us for everything. I mean, they really did. They're very introverted. All three of them are not very extroverted people anyway. Um, and I'm a strong personality. As a mom, I think we did a good job as parents. I know that's the first question usually most of us that are alienated or estranged asked is, what did I
What
do?
did you
You try and search your mind saying, where did I go wrong? That type of thing. And I think my husband and I were good parents. We don't do a lot of things. We were perfect parents by any means, but we were good parents. All three of our girls were honor students. They were captains of their athletic teams. They wanted to hang out with us. We chaperoned a lot of their stuff. We were involved in everything. So um, we were really close to all three of our girls. All three of our girls. We were
Mm-hmm.
very close. And so when she started distancing, I thought, well, okay, this is normal. She's getting her own life. And I was okay with that. And my husband and I were empty nesters, down the line here. And we're thinking, this will be good. We just have the baby left or whatever, at home. And we can kind of have time for us too. And the more friends that I made, the more my oldest daughter started making up false memories in front of me. They'd laugh or joke about something, and I'd like, that is not the way that happened. And I think a lot of us understand that, the false
Yeah.
memory bit too. And I'm like, that is not the way that happened, or I wasn't even there, or whatever. But the long story is at the end of every story, I'm the villain,
Mm-hmm.
in her story. And so she's telling the other two this, or they're kind of joking with me, and I get mad and they think it's funny, or whatever, and leave or walk out of the room because it's just so ridiculous, or they're overly critical, severely critical of everything that I did. Well, it got to the point where they weren't texting me back anymore, the oldest one. And then the second one wasn't texting me back. And then I thought, what the heck is going on? Well, we still had the baby at home. And she's like, Mom, I don't know why they're doing this. I don't know why that's happening. So my point is that I'm not really sure who the alienator is in my situation. I know that it stems from my daughter, my oldest daughter, but I believe that she was alienated or brainwashed at some point too. And I don't know if it's her husband or her husband's family, or um, I guess I'm not sure. So, and I still am not sure. I've been studying this and researching alienation and estrangement for a long time to try and understand um, if it was my whistleblower case, if I'm trying to learn about it, and I really don't know. And I've come to the acceptance that I probably am not going to ever find out who did this or who is doing this, because when after they're 18, you really don't have any power anymore to speak to them. And so I wouldn't say that I'm accepting it. Everybody talks about acceptance, and I would say that I'm not accepting it because it's very hard. And there's still days where I am very sad and I feel like my heart has been ripped out. Um, but there are days too where I'm very angry. I don't know about you, Mary, but I go back and forth between anger and being sad quite often when it comes to them.
I
Um,
truly understand. The same.
I have 3 grandchildren at this point, so I'm very excited. 2 of them I've never met, and I don't know if I'll be able to meet. The reason I say alienated versus estranged, I think I want to clarify that too, because alienated. Can you hang on just a moment, Matt? My phone is getting down to battery. My battery is just going dead really fast here.
Oh,
Um, yeah, I might have to grab a cord here in a second,
okay,
but
go
I'll
ahead.
let you talk.
Go
Um,
ahead.
okay, let me do that quick. Thanks.
Yes. Yes. So, yeah, I truly understand what Heidi is saying. We don't know once the kids are alienated and then get into adulthood, they estrange themselves because by then they're ashamed on how they, bad mouth and gaslit the loving parent. So they do not get to rectify everything that they have gone through. So the difference between, I know, the alienation and the estrangement. So
Yes, sorry about this.
that's
Okay,
okay. That's okay.
all right. Um, well, I'm part of a group online of a lot of parents who. Can you plug this in for me, please? Um, I'm in quite a few Facebook groups, which is great, and you know what? They've helped me a ton. So I encourage anybody. This is my husband, kind of walking around in the background here. Um, I encourage anyone to, if you just you're not ready for counseling, because some of us are not ready for counseling, necessarily, or don't believe in therapy. I would encourage you to go to the Facebook groups, because you really get a chance to see other people who are going through the same thing. That really, you get a chance to see where other people are at in their journey, because really there's a lot of stages to this that we all go through. Because it's a grief. I mean, plain and simple, that's what this is it's grief. It's grieving over the loss of your children, basically. And
It's
um,
a prolonged grief disorder, yes. I mean, it's in
yeah,
the DSM what we're going through. In the DSM, it talks about losing homes, losing jobs, losing, money
yeah,
as a prolonged grief disorder. Now, how about these parents that are losing their children? This here should be put right into it why prolonged grief disorder has gotten so bad with kind, loving people.
right,
Grandparents, parents, siblings, we're all grieving a live death
right, right.
and
And
no closure.
that's just it. I feel like, if they would have just told me to my face, I hate you, I don't ever want to talk to you again, or whatever, I almost think I could, I would, of course, that would be horrifying and terrible, but I almost think I could deal with that better than this pretending as if I don't exist anymore, or I'm invisible, or I'm not even allowed to see pictures of my grandchildren. I mean, and I don't know where this is coming from, and I don't know who's, you know, I was very fiercely protective of my girls. Being a whistleblower, I I'm probably, I like to think that I'm a courageous person, although
Hmm.
that was horrible also, and the effects of that are very difficult also. Um, but I've had a lot of really devastating things happen in a short period of time. I mean, my oldest daughter has really, you know, attacked my reputation. This really hurts your reputation too, or you feel
Hmm.
like it. And my she's talked my mom into changing my parents' will, which has been in place for 30 years, and I've been helping my mom for that amount of time. Um, and and there just every different avenue, like totally wanting to destroy me almost. And I think, where is the girl? I know we mentioned this before, but it's like aliens take over their body. I'm like, my girls wouldn't, they were kind people. They would never hurt somebody purposely. And you know, it's that part is the real mind twist for me. I cannot wrap my head around how they can be so cruel and so cold. I mean, to treat a stranger on the street better than they would treat either one of us, and why?
And
Um,
that's the sad part, because millions of parents and grandparents
yeah,
are treated this way,
yeah,
all because of a divorce or a separation.
right. And the alienator can be anyone. Like I'm saying, I know the most common situation is with a divorcing couple, where both parents are primary in the child's life. But it can be anyone close to your child. I just
Mhm.
want to say this, anyone close, and they can be at any age. It doesn't, well, not any age, but young people, young adults even are, I mean, otherwise we wouldn't have people in cults and things like that. So this
Right.
brainwashing can happen at any young person age by anyone close to them that has some kind of influence over them. So a
Mhm.
spouse, a girlfriend, boyfriend, aunts, uncles, anyone. So, um, and I wrap, I sit there and go, okay, how many suspects are there, Then I said, what difference does it make, if I know who the alienator is or not? Because my girls are also adults too, and where do you? I don't. They have to figure some things out on their own. It's
Yes.
just very difficult for them, and I know that the thought is that eventually they do figure it out. But at what cost? What cost is it?
Yes.
Um,
I figured it out after 40 years with my dad. Well, no, I figured it out long time before that, because I married an alienated adult child, and the psychopathic, uh, the situations I was in, I should have been dead by now, but I got out because I learned how to control those things. I mean, it's like he was a cult leader, and I
yeah,
had to
right.
obey him. So the more I obeyed him, the less beatings I got. But
Yeah,
when the children came, it pushed him away, and I took more care of the children. But he was a
right.
soldier, so he was never home. And he expected me to drop the children for him when he walked in that door. But what I did, I handed him the children, and he resented it, because the
Yeah.
children needed to reunify with him after 6 to 12 months a year. First thing I would do is, here, your children missed you. We could have our own intimate time later. And it didn't work that way, because I didn't drop the children. So now, because I took such good care of those children, he used the children to hurt me, knowing that, you know, it's the only thing that it won't bother me so much if I left them. They don't like that.
And I think I was in an abusive relationship before my husband here. He's wonderful. He's great. We've been married a long time, but and so my oldest daughter, I didn't put that in there. I guess I didn't share that. My oldest daughter is from my first marriage,
Oh,
and
okay.
and she is the alienator here. So the other two are my husband's girls, and so. We sit there and think, what do they have to be upset at us for? I mean, our oldest one, I took her and I left that marriage when she was 3. She didn't even remember him. She never got to know him. He never was part of her life. My husband and I got married when she was 3, so he's the only dad she's ever known, and he's great. So, I've thought about so many different things about this. Is it genetic? I mean, is there some kind of genetic component to this narcissistic, entitlement kind of thing? Um, Or are they easily controlled? Are they, I don't know. And
See, we have a question there from Susie, and she's just asking, we as parents are heartbroken. Do you think it's an attachment disorder of some kind? Good question, Susie. Hello. Can you let us know where you're texting us from? It'd be great. And please share the
yeah,
program to help others.
I do believe
So,
it's an attachment disorder. It completely is. I don't know, Mary, you can speak to that too, but it's completely an attachment disorder. And I think, this is my first time being a parent, with, with 3 girls. It's like, we're all on this journey and we're all learning on this journey. And like I said, I'm not a perfect parent, but I loved and sheltered and smothered probably my girls because I wanted to protect them from all the terrible things that happen in life. I mean, we all do that.
Exactly.
And I think they became dependent on us. I think, and when she had someone else to fill that role, um, we're no longer necessary um, in that regard. And it's a self-esteem issue too, I believe. Attachment and self-esteem. And I tried my hardest to build my daughter's self-esteem. Excuse me. All three of them are beauties. They're beautiful girls. They're smart. They make me laugh. They're hilarious. Um, but for whatever reason, I'm not the only person in their life. And so they have other experiences where people may have not made them feel the best or whatever. And I understand that too. So, figuring their stuff out isn't, I learned long ago, just like Mary's talking about her husband, when you first start out and you're a codependent type person or empathic person, you focus on the other person, right? Because that's what you're used to doing. That's what you're used
Right.
to doing. Everything surrounds that other person. What are they
Yeah.
doing? What are they thinking? Where are they going? Blah blah blah. And then when you finally start healing from that and getting better, you start realizing, well, what am I doing? You know, where, geez, I look like crap. Maybe I should do something. You start being normal again, and you kind of focus on normal things, like,
Right.
you know you know what I mean. I don't know how else to explain that, but and so now whenever I see somebody or read somebody that's focusing on a narcissist or on an abuser, I think, oh, that makes me feel sad, because I think they're not at that point yet where they've been able to detach, or from that. And I think my girls, there's an attachment issue with them too, with us. um and I think it's normal for some kids to go through some of this. I remember my mom and dad, I wanted to be on my own and be independent and do my own thing too. Um, but I would never do this. I would never be as cruel as they are. And I don't know where that comes from with a lot of these kids, the
Right.
cruelty. Yeah,
And when you say that there's a lot of parents out there that, or people that can't get over the fact that their abuser has done what they did, they're the
right.
ones with our children. These
I
people,
know.
us, and even me, we can't get over it. We will never get over it. We have to talk about what the alienator is doing so people
Yeah,
will know that we're not
yes,
just, BSing all this stuff. This is a planned action of attack, and they're weaponizing our children because
right.
they are very distraught in how we um
Absolutely. I mean, and
ign-
they're trying to trigger us. I mean, I'm sure
yes,
your ex does that still probably.
constantly. So
They
how do
try and
you,
elicit. Yeah,
we can't get away from it because it's
right,
coming from them, and we're only like, we are the shield. We're holding back all those false allegations, right? We're trying to repel it back to you and say,
right,
no, look in the mirror, that was you.
right. And you know
But
what?
that's
They
the
don't
only
care though.
way. No, they
But they
don't
don't
care, but
care.
but we need the education to show that this is what's happening so that people don't
Right.
feel so bad, because there's a lot of parents out there that commit suicide because they can't handle
Absolutely.
the false allegations.
Yeah. Right.
They have no
Absolutely.
way. They don't
It's
know whether that
horrifying.
it is. So we let the parents out there to know that, no, don't hurt yourself. Don't harm yourself. You're not crazy. It's
Right.
not you.
Right.
It is
No.
the
Right.
other person, right?
It completely is. But they, you know, well, I learned gray rocking. Do you know what gray rocking is,
Yes,
right? Have you ever
yes,
heard of gray rock? Yeah.
yes.
When I learned that, I thought, because I used to be a fighter. I mean, I still kind of am. I mean, obviously, if I'm a whistleblower, I stand up, I'm not afraid. And I'm not afraid. And the blessing is the older you get, the less I care about what other people think of
Exactly.
me as well. But to have false allegations and have your reputation smeared and by people that are supposed to love you, I
Mhm.
mean, it's and that they would promote that, and it elicits like a very strong emotional sense, and then they turn around and say, see, look at how crazy mom is, whatever, when you react to it. And so I have to, thank goodness my husband's not as extroverted, or his strength comes from a different place. Let me put it that way.
Everybody's different.
And right. Um, but he had a stroke and from COVID. I terrible. It was awful. And then 2 weeks later, my youngest daughter was in a car wreck. A lady hit her. It wasn't her fault, and she had to have her appendix out. And then a week later, my oldest daughter called CPS on my husband and I, and our only child at home is 17 years old. So
Wow.
all this happened within like a 6-week span. And I'm telling you, I can't lie and say that suicide wasn't on my mind with all that. During COVID, they wouldn't let you visit anybody, so I couldn't even visit my husband or know where he's at. There was nowhere for him to rehab, so I had to bring him home and do it here. And none of my girls even called to see if he was okay. It was just the most bizarre thing ever. And so I would say during that time that I probably got as close as thinking about it. I mean, seriously thinking about it, saying I have nothing left to live for. Why am I even, I can't see my grandkids. I'll never see my kids again. I'll never hear the words "I love you, Mom" again.
Mhm.
And so what else do I have? And then I thought, I have my husband here. He needs me. He
Mhm.
needed me, and probably a good thing that he did need me, because I don't know how else do you how else do you repair your heart after it's broken in a million pieces? You can't. It'll never be back
Mhm.
together away. And that
No,
grief is very eye-opening.
it is, because it's our children. I mean, to lose that bond, that's special.
Yeah,
We raised them to protect them. We didn't raise them to be out there to trashing us, to
right,
becoming prostitutes, to become in the dark web. I mean, the things that
right.
my children have gone through and other people's children trafficked it out through the court system is unbelievable. I
Well, the
mean,
CPS system is, at least here in the United States, is so corrupt here. It's beyond corrupt. As a
Canada
whistleblower,
too.
I started looking into things, and I would encourage everybody who's listening to this to do the same thing. Okay, whether you are involved with CPS or not, because I think this information is so important to get out there. In every state in the United States, and I'm sure in Canada as well, they have to be transparent. Uh, Child Protective Services has to be transparent. So they have to put out their data for anybody to be able to view. Now they hide it, they bury it, they do all kinds of
Mhm.
things on their websites. But if you go in and look at your state's data, you would be disgusted and shocked. They take these scenarios of estrangement and alienation and just amplify it, and they capitalize on them. They use it to take children away. They're very money incentivized here in the United States. Anyway, and people think that they have the same power as law enforcement, and they do not have the same power as law enforcement. No one is under any obligation to speak to them, and they almost use this against, they pit parents against each other and pit children against parents and things like that. So, but what I'm saying about the data is, go and find your CPS data for your state. For instance, I'll give you an example. In Wisconsin in 2018, the county that I live right on the Minnesota border, right by St. Paul, and in Wisconsin, my county is a very wealthy county, with it's third in education for the whole state. It's right on the borderline, so a lot of people work in Minnesota. And the crime rate here is 0.1. I mean, it's like seriously so low, it's crazy. And yet 51% of cases that CPS investigated resulted in removing a child from the home. And so I'm looking at that going, how can that be? We have 0.1. The level of child abuse that would remove a child has to be like criminal almost. You know what I mean? It has to be to the point where, and 51%, and the state average is 12%. And I went, wait a minute, something's wrong here. Something is wrong with this. So go in and look. The other thing, some other data that was on Wisconsin at the time, 33% of cases had evidence. Any evidence. 33% is all. Um, 59% of children were not allowed to have an ongoing relationship with their family members.
Mm-hmm.
59, 60%, or just one family member. And usually it's the alienator that gets that, the target parent is not usually the one who is able to, have contact. And CPS they just make everything worse. So if anybody thinks that CPS is going to improve their situation or help them in any way in family court, they're wrong, for the most part. I'm not saying all social workers are bad, because they're not. But the CPS system here in the United States it's very corrupt here. So as a whole.
It's the same here in Canada. I mean, our constituents are the ones that are supposed to be helping us, but they're standing behind the door. They won't let us in. They won't talk to us. They won't, acknowledge us. We've gone as far as, our one step below our prime minister, and yet we can't get into voicing our horror show that we're going through.
Yeah,
We have evidence.
yeah,
We have so much evidence,
yeah,
but they don't
yeah.
seem to care because they're making $55 billion a year off our children in the family
Right.
court system. And
Absolutely.
I did an interview with the Attorney General of Ontario here in Canada, and he said they were putting billions into the courtrooms, um, hybrid cameras or whatever these cameras are. But why would you spend that kind of money when you already have cameras in there? All you got to do is turn them on,
Right, right.
right?
Well,
But but
yeah,
where's this money coming from? But is my question. How do they get all this money? $55
right,
billion. It's from trafficking our children, because
right.
children, they make
And exploiting the parents.
$350,000.
They're exploiting parents too.
Yes,
They bill you for all your, you know, what kills me is here they can take your child away and then bill you for the foster care,
yeah,
bill the parent for the foster care time or whatever. I mean, it's the most asinine, ridiculous system. That's like our system of putting somebody in jail and then fining them, charging them
yeah,
for each day they're in jail.
for making us,
It's
yeah.
ridiculous.
It
But what I was gonna say is I started trying to think of how can how can we change this? As a whistleblower, how do you address this? And so I'm working right now on a training program for an advocacy, because I don't think anybody really knows how to be an advocate. You know what I
mm,
mean? Like, how do you stand up for other people? How do you do it the right way without starting a fight, or with somebody or whatever? And so I started writing an advocacy program because I think parents need advocates. I don't know
yeah,
if it's like that up there, but here if you're in with CPS, you have nothing. You are
no,
not giving an advocate, you're not giving an attorney, you're not nothing. You fight them on your own, and most of these people cannot afford to fight it. They're barely making it the way it is. And millions of people, innocent families. How many innocent families have to suffer through the trauma, and then they have, you know, a divorce or something else on top of it? No wonder all this is going on. It's devastating, but we have to be an advocate for each other.
that's right.
And I think that boils down to it. Our children aren't going to listen to us, but
No,
they might listen to
to
aunt
someone else.
or uncle, somebody else, right?
Yeah,
And if you have nobody to stick up for you, which a lot of us feel that way, I know I feel that way a lot, because you're worried. We have a lot of family members that just blindly believe whatever gossip goes on, regardless. And they should know better, because they know us. They know who we are. I've been accused of I don't know how many things from my kids, like you were saying too, completely asinine, ridiculous allegations. And it always plants a seed. People wonder or whatever, even though they should know better. And I think we need to do a lot more questioning when we hear allegations, rather than just blindly believing it or repeating it. Maybe we get involved with other people, maybe we care and see how somebody's doing, or I think we need a lot more of that in this world. We really do.
that's
um,
right. Well, we have a bunch of advocates here in Ontario. We get together, we do marches, go to constituents' offices. We call other people's kids.
That's
We
great.
even do their paperwork for courts. We help them try to stay out of courts. We make parenting plans. I'm an advocate with Canada Court Watch here with a bunch of people that I I share groups with. There's about 100, almost 200 groups that I am involved with on Facebook, social media.
Fabulous. That's
So I'm
fabulous.
out there for everybody. And one of them is Crystal Phoenix Risings. I just want to say hi to Crystal. Thanks for tuning in. But, there's a lot of people that don't know, like you said, how to advocate.
Right.
And if they want to, just sharing their story would be the best thing they could do to help the next person.
And
And
I
I
believe in,
strong
I agree with you, Mary. So I don't mean to cut you off. Hopefully I didn't cut you off.
no, no,
I
no.
didn't mean to interrupt you if I
It's your
did.
show, so I
Oh
don't want to
gosh.
cut you off.
Oh, I didn't mean to interrupt you because I
No,
don't. I have Alzheimer's too. I feel like sometimes I like can't forget to, I forget what I'm
well,
on topic. But what I'm
we've
trying to
gone
say,
through enough. We've gone
yeah.
through a lot.
And I think, PTSD, that is one of the signs of PTSD. And I think
Yeah,
all of us have had PTSD to some degree. But what I was going to say is now I'm going to forget what I'm going to say. Is telling our story.
yeah.
Um, I think, for me, it's embarrassing. And I
Oh,
don't know how many people I've run into that are, they're going through horrible abuse and
hmm,
clearly not their fault. But their children and their ex-spouse or whoever the alienator is making them feel like, you know, like they should be ashamed or embarrassed or like they had something, and so a lot of people, and I truly believe this is why it continues to grow. This problem is because nobody talks about it, and we need to start talking about it because you know what? Dang it, I haven't done anything wrong. I have not, and I certainly have not done anything that warrants the kind of behavior or the treatment that I've gotten. No human being deserves to be made to feel like they're unloved or unworthy after they've spent their whole life raising children or whatever. But
exactly.
we need to talk about it. We need to encourage our girlfriends to talk about it. And I'm not saying everybody needs to stand up in front of an audience and say, well,
No,
because a lot of it is private and it's personal. But we need to be more open about it, talking about it and acknowledging how much of it is out there because I think most of us would be shocked at how many people face this,
yes,
some kind of alienation or estrangement.
millions. I think
Yeah.
I think I heard it was Graham Worthington just on our Parent Alienation group. I think he said 50 million
Yeah.
in Canada alone.
Yeah. I
And
think
I mean, I'm mad. Like they put all them people in front of a courthouse. You can't see the courthouse.
right. And
These
we
are,
need to have more than that, more of that. And I think people are just like domestic violence. There's battered wife syndrome, and I think there's battered parent syndrome. And
yeah,
whatever you want to call it, there's a syndrome where you don't want nobody wants to admit that their children are doing this,
abusing them.
you know.
Yeah.
And and so it's very difficult. I try and put some humor into this as much as I can. And so, Marianne Petrie, I'm sure
Yeah.
you know her well. She's one of my besties, actually. We're best
Nice.
friends. We talk all the time.
She's
Um,
adorable. I just love
she's
her.
she's great, and
Yeah.
in fact, and we're trying to go out there to Pennsylvania for Thanksgiving because
Oh,
I said,
nice.
you know what? Why can't Thanksgiving just be us hanging out and eating pizza? You know what? Because the holidays are hard for a lot of people.
Oh, it is.
It's devastating, and so we try and come up with different things. We talk a lot, and the more friends and support system that you have as an alienated parent, the easier it is. It really is, because even if they're not alienated, if you just have somebody to listen to you, as a woman, talk it out, or it's cathartic. You get rid of some of these pent up emotions. But staying quiet about it only perpetuates the abuse.
Yeah.
And the young people, they don't care. I want to tell you, they do not care. They're not yet anyway. They either haven't matured or they haven't figured it out,
Right.
basically. And and so waiting it out and thinking they're going to come back someday is probably not the thing that we need to be doing. We need to
Mhm.
be living our lives and trying to talk about it and support each other. And you know it's important. That part's important.
It is. It is because these kids, our kids, are growing up to have kids. They're going to end up alienating their
Yeah,
children.
right.
The next generation will be alienating their children, and it'll get so to the point where there'll be no children left because nobody wants to have children. I've got 3 adult kids that don't have children. They're in their 30s, getting close to 40s, not even in a relationship.
Yeah,
Their lives have been ruined. We were in a
yeah,
trial because I got brought back to a trial 18 years after. The kids, the adult kids were saying they were suing me because I wanted nothing to do with them. But yet for 18 years, I didn't stop getting, like, emailing them, trying to
yeah,
get phone calls. And
right.
the only time I got to see them was in court for 18 years. Every time they needed money, I'm in court. So, when it ended in 2022, and I thought, okay, it's been 2 years and I still haven't heard from you after taking me to court saying I didn't want anything to do with you.
Yeah.
This is just to
Did they
harass us now.
did
That's
they do your kids, do they don't contact you any other time? I mean
no,
that has to be a telltale sign. It's like, I don't know about your kids, and it's probably my fault. I think as a we maybe a lot of us overprotected them and we overdid,
spoiled them.
and well, yeah, to some degree. I never thought we did because I was the disciplinarian usually,
Me too.
um but I think they my girls, none of them can say the words "I'm sorry."
No,
None of
mine
them.
either.
None of them. They wouldn't even begin to acknowledge that they've done anything wrong. And
Right.
I do a lot of reading and research in healthcare. As a healthcare provider, I research on that end of it as well, and think that that's a very big issue. That's a very big part of our character, our human character. If we cannot not acknowledge our own mistakes and that we've hurt someone, that's the beginnings of a sociopath person.
Yes.
And so I worry about that. I worry about. I don't think. I hopefully my girls will be able to acknowledge at some point, but um so I think with you, you probably are like me. I have to have my own integrity as well in character. And I've apologized to them. I really have. I've sent out texts. I don't have a way to contact all of them all the time, but when I did, I would say, I'm sorry, because I would never intentionally. Now, our kids don't understand the difference between intentional and accidental. I would never intentionally hurt you, ever.
Hmm.
And not saying that I have, because everybody has, I would never do that on purpose. Um, I'm so sorry for whatever I've done. And they'd be like, they just were not ready to hear that.
Hmm.
And I would say, aren't you, don't you think we can come to some middle ground? Or you try and get them to find, and gosh, my oldest one physically cannot say those words. She
Mine
cannot.
either.
I haven't done anything wrong. I don't need to apologize to you for anything. Okay.
Hmm.
And then so that makes me worried about my grandkids.
Yes,
What, yeah, without having to explain it, what kind of environment are they, learning that from? I just, gosh, I can't even, so much of this is very heartbreaking.
it is.
And you try to, I remind myself, okay, Heidi, just like the whistleblower thing, because I do a lot of peer advocacy for whistleblowers who are going through horrible cases, saving lives. One lady was whistleblowing on a lot of environmental things that were saving millions of lives. So, and she was just having a hard time, and we get kind of obsessed over this stuff, because it's just it's there in your face all the time. You know,
Right.
you get obsessed. You see something that reminds you of your kids, or
Oh,
somebody asks about them, or you know, and so it's easy to get kind of just swirl down the toilet and kind of get stuck in that mode, and you need to remind yourself, hey, okay, I've thought about this enough. I've put my body through enough stress today. Let's watch TV or let's do something else. And
mhm.
so um a coping mechanism for me is journaling. I do a lot of journaling, and I write a lot of letters to my girls that I never send. And that's helped me quite a bit. But just, reminding yourself to put an alarm clock on how much time and effort you spend figuring this out.
Right. Right. I wanna, like, my youngest, after the trial, just right after, she had messaged me and said that, I will never get to meet my future grandchildren, and if she does have children, she will tell them what an abusive, crackhead, alcoholic mother I was. And I'm thinking, how could you even abuse your child now? First of all, I never drank, I never did crack, I never abused you, but you're making up all these stories before your child is born. What kind of mentality would that fall into? Like, where is all this coming from if they're already setting up their future children to
How
not
old is she?
see?
How old is
At
how old
that
is this
time, she
daughter?
was 32. Now she's 34.
Hmm.
So, that makes me wonder, that is she suffering that bad inside that she has to keep lashing out? And now to hurt me with my future grandchildren.
Yeah,
That's hurtful.
I've heard that same thing. I've I've I got to take my one grandson for a walk for 15 minutes. That's as much time as I've ever gotten to spend with him. And he had
Mhm.
seizures when he had a genetic disorder, genetic mutation. When he was born, he's the cutest little, I called him Bubby. I still call him Bubby. To me, he's still 6 months old, and he's actually 6 years old now.
Oh, wow.
And I have two other grandchildren I've never met, like I said. But um, I think they will figure it out one day. And my daughter has said the same things to me. I'll make sure they know all about you, that kind of stuff. And I'll say, I'll just wait, hopefully I'm still here. Either way, there's nothing I can do about it. And I hope that my grandchildren are smart and beautiful and smart enough to see what the real deal is.
Right.
And we've rearranged our will so that everything goes to our grandkids at some point.
I did the same thing. I mean, we're only rewarding our children with what we planned on giving them when they were, in a healthy environment with us. But now that
Right,
they're abusing us, because the police won't do anything,
right,
they won't help uh, parents with their children abusing them at all.
right,
I mean,
right.
nursing homes are full of them.
Yeah,
So if we give the money, whatever we have, to our future grandchildren, that will be, the kids will know that, oh, I had grandparents and they
right.
really loved us, not like
And
what
right,
my mom or dad are saying, right?
somebody came up with a great, and I think this is great. I haven't done it yet, but I probably should. Is they created a social media profile for their grandkids, and every year they just write like a journal kind of to their grandkids,
Mhm.
and in the hopes that someday their grandkids will create their own Facebook or whatever social media. It's not even Instagram profile, and they'll type in their name and they'll go, hey, wait a minute, there's already you know
A page.
a page for with my name on it, and they go on that page and they're able to read everything that we have to say. We'll have
Yeah.
a chance to be there in some way, and they'll be able to see how we were there celebrating every milestone with them, and how much we wanted to be there. And I feel sad because my girls are going to reap what they sow someday, and and I that makes doesn't make me happy. I I don't want them to be sad, because someday when we're gone, it's going to dawn on them. It's going to hit them like a bus, and they have to live with that the rest of their lives. And I don't want my girls to have to live with it, but there's nothing I can do. We've given them as much as we can, and that's the way it is.
Yes. I'm going to read a couple comments here. CPS was created for the purpose of child trafficking.
Yeah.
It's not something that
Yeah.
it's not something that became corrupt. It's
It was
or
originally corrupt, is what
it
she's
was
trying to
originally
say with
corrupt.
her.
Yes, right
Yeah.
at the very beginning. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, what they say, most caseworkers, at least in the US, if they leave before their 2-year point is up. Most of the
Hmm.
CPS caseworkers. So you're always dealing with people fresh out of
Mm,
school, young people who are probably alienating or estranging their own parents. I mean, you're starting out with people who are not equipped to be in that type of a role. Marianne and I talk about this endlessly. It needs to go back to law enforcement.
yeah,
This needs to go back to law enforcement to figure out, because whenever there's money as an incentive in something, it's corrupt.
it's
I'm
corrupt.
just sorry. It
That's
corrupts
right.
us. There's no
Yeah.
checks and balances. Where, I tell people, where are you going to write a complaint to? There's nobody that regulates them or does anything about it. So you can sue them, but maybe you'll get a judge that'll listen to you. Maybe you won't. Probably likely you won't. They'll circle the wagons and protect them.
Hmm.
So it's like it is corrupt. It has been corrupt, and the people there, it's like they look for corrupt people to work there.
Hmm.
Nobody wants to stay in that role.
Right.
Usually the nice ones are the ones that are really doing their job, realize it in the 2-year span, and go work somewhere else.
Exactly. Exactly. Good answer
Foster
for that
care.
one.
Foster care also is, I was really upset with foster parents. I really thought, um, I thought they were in on it and everything, until I really talked to one. And this guy's great. He was a single dad, and CPS was yanking him around too. He had these 2 boys, and he really wanted to adopt them. And, he was good for them. You could see that. It was my niece's son, my little nephews or whatever. Um, And he was great for him. And I said, whatever I can do to help you, they belong with you. You're the only parent they've known. You're great. CPS did the same number on him. So, it's foster parents are yanked through this system too, without necessarily knowing what's going on. And that's too bad. Too
Right.
bad. Because the kids are the ones that suffer.
That's
And
right.
yeah. Anyway,
There's
the
a
question
comment
is,
here. There's a comment here from Susie. She
yeah,
says that
they can.
CPS can go into the child's school without and visit with your child without the parents' permission. No,
Yeah.
they cannot go into the school. I highly
It's in
recommend
here.
everyone to go to Canada Court Watch and look up Vernon Beck. He specifically is working on this because CPS cannot go into schools. We're educating teachers to keep them
Yeah.
out of schools because this is no different than a predator or a pedophile, someone walking into the school and then giving them, the principal or the teachers giving them private personal information about the child and then letting the child out of the school with
Well,
them.
they do that all the time here, Mary. They
I
really do. In the
know.
United States, they
And
allow
we're,
this, but they cannot. Here's how you stop that from happening.
okay, tell us,
You
because this
write.
is what we need to do. We need
Yeah,
to
this is
stop this.
exactly. I've done research on this as well. You need to write a letter. Write a letter that says, I do not give permission for anyone to interview my children, X, Y, and Z, whatever their names, ages are. Date this letter, make sure it's dated, without my being notified prior to any interview occurring, and without either myself or my advocate, like a pastor, a attorney, whoever you name as your advocate, being present. So CPS, if they say, well, we don't want the parent present, fine, then I want this advocate present, and
Right.
that the interview is recorded. Now you write that down. Okay, so you're writing down, no one is allowed to interview my child without my prior notice and my advocate, either myself or my advocate, present during the interview. Otherwise, and then you write on there, otherwise you'll be in violation of X, Y, and Z. And I will be suing each individual person, and you'll be in violation. Basically, sign it and have a witness sign it so that it's witnessed by someone.
Right.
And give 2 copies to the school. Make sure
In
it's
the
a copy
school
that's
board.
served or by registered letter or certified letter, some way that you can prove that it was delivered to the school.
Yes.
And that should do it. I mean, everybody that's done that, the school takes that seriously.
Yes.
And they might still allow CPS to interview your child, but at least then you're going to have notice of it. You're going to have a recording of it. You're going to be able to be there or have an advocate present, all things that are protective of your family and your children. So
Yes. Absolutely. So the next question here we got are not a question, but attorneys are not advocates, and they must be loyal to the Bars Association, and that is so true. During my trial, I had just months before the trial began, my lawyer was disbarred for lying to the judge. He was feeding
your
drugs,
lawyer,
and
your lawyer.
my lawyer, he was a legal aid lawyer. So
Oh,
legal aid caught him. The Ontario Law Society took him to court, and he got caught feeding his clients drugs and alcohol. He
oh
wasn't
my God.
filing on time.
Oh
He
my
was
God.
just rude, right out rude on the phone, because it was during
Yeah.
COVID that I went through
Wow.
this. So we couldn't face each other. And one
Yeah.
day he wanted me in his office. And I said, I can't go. Well, he reamed me up and down on the phone. He made me cry. And I'm thinking, how dare you? Like, I had a heart attack because of the COVID. I got sick.
Yeah.
I was going through a lot of medical problems, but he got disbarred. And so
Wow.
I had to scramble and find another lawyer just months before. But this was all pre planned, I believe, that, you know, so that I wouldn't go to trial.
Hmm.
But I still got there. And
Well, a lot of people can't afford it. I mean, let's just be frank. There are a lot of people that cannot afford to retain the kind of attorney that you really need. You know what
oh,
I mean?
right.
And so you're at the mercy of legal aid. Your attorney, like our attorney, is a friend of our family's as well, and he's wonderful. Um, he would be there. I would want to have a lawyer present if there's ever any interviewing of my children. I want to have some kind of advocate, and what I mean by advocate is somebody there that is on my behalf or on the child's
Right.
behalf to make sure that they're safe or
Yeah.
whatever, and that the law is being followed and that everything is legal. So if you can't have an attorney, which a lot of people, I would say the majority of people could not just have an attorney there at any given time present, I would say your pastor, a teacher that you trust,
Advocate.
right, someone who knows you and knows your family and is willing to stand up for you or your family. um,
Exactly.
So yeah, healthcare provider too. I've done that too as a healthcare provider. I've dealt with CPS for 25 years before I ever taught college. So um, yeah. Oh,
Yes.
here's another question, huh?
Yeah. You want to read that one?
Yeah, it says Susie Bessie. I can't say.
Yes,
Excuse me
Susie
if I'm
Betsy.
pronouncing your name wrong. It says the parent's authority has been stripped away, and that is 1000% true. Our civil rights are violated every single day. Every parent's civil rights are violated. And you know why? At least in the United States, CPS functions on the civil side of law. If you know anything about law, and I learned a lot about law being a whistleblower and going through all the trial and everything. There's a civil side of law and there's a criminal side of law. Okay. Well, CPS likes to balance tread on that line right in between the two, but they like to use whichever side to their benefit. So they don't have to feed you your Miranda rights. Everything you say to them can and will be twisted and used against you in a court of law. Well, that's your Miranda rights, right? That's whatever
Hmm.
we read that to everybody. This is their Miranda rights. They don't have to. They don't have to say that to you because they're functioning on the civil side of law. But then on the flip side, no one is under any obligation, at least here in the United States, to ever speak with a CPS worker ever. You do not have to open your door to them. You do
Nope.
not have to allow them in your home. You have every right to tell them no. And I think that's the biggest education piece I would give out to everybody. Otherwise, they will violate your rights. They've stripped away any parental protection. The courts back them up, and parents are left hanging, you know.
Yes. Well, here's another one for you to end to finish that one sentence there.
Um, it makes me wonder, did we love too much or not love enough? I don't know. I don't know. You know, each case is so individually different, don't you think, Mary? I don't know. I think I think most of us love them too much
Too
because I
much.
think we grew up with. I'm a Generation X person, and I grew up with parents that were well, we're the latchkey generation. We're the generation that didn't have parents around to hover over us. We didn't get snacks after school. We didn't get, all this other stuff. And so I think it's natural for then the following generation to kind of try to
Do it.
make up for all those things
Yeah.
that we missed. And I think we might have done too much
Too much.
with them and spoiled them.
Yes.
I hate that word, but we're just trying to make it life better for them, and
It's a better word for spoiled is loved. I think we love
yeah,
them to know what they needed, you know, after school, we always made healthy snacks because they had to do their homework. I mean, we
right,
still had
right,
a few hours before dinner came. So we would always have things ready for them before they
right.
came home from school to
Well, and
prepare them.
I went to every single event. I mean, I was
Me
there
too.
whistling and making noise. And my parents, I can probably count on one hand as many events as they came to of mine when I was growing up. And my parents were great parents. They were, um, they didn't make me the center of their universe. You know what I mean?
Right.
My mother is very narcissistic, and that's another thing. She feeds a lot of this too with my kids. I'm her only child, and my mother never wanted children. So that should, I got the joy of growing up with these horrible female influence on both sides, on my mother's side and my children now, who are mean to me. And, but I think, our parents just, it wasn't necessarily bad. I don't want to make them sound like they're bad parents
No,
for not being involved. They
just
just,
didn't think like we did.
they were living their life too. Yeah,
Yes,
right, right,
yes. They were living their life and we
right.
were raising our sibling. I came from 7 brothers, so
Oh
I
my,
was the third oldest. I'm raising 5 little brothers, but I'm not saying my parents neglected us, but my parents were European hard workers from Europe.
right, right.
So and we lived on a farm, so they were farmers by day. My dad was a butcher to go to work, and then our activities at night, we were horse owners, so we were always crammed in a van together, 8 of us,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know. So when I raised my children, we basically raised the children the exact same way I grew up, but only I looked after them where they didn't have to look after their siblings,
right, right. And I think
right?
I was the baby in my family, or the only, whatever,
Right.
youngest one. And my dad was married before and had before he married my mother, but he and like my situation, he and my mother were married 46 years before my dad passed away. So they were together, their whole lives.
Long time. Yeah.
And but my mother was very very much the same way my daughters are towards me, very critical, very
Mm,
everything. I said to somebody, I have never and will never hear my mother say the words, "I'm proud of you." Never. I've gone through this horrible whistleblower case. I've made national news. I've saved tens of thousands of students from financial ruin. um, and I'll never hear her say, "I'm proud of you." Thank God my dad was wonderful, and he was very supportive, and I miss him every single day.
mm,
Um, and I love my mother. I don't want to say I don't. I would never treat her
right.
like my children have treated me, because she's still my mother.
Right.
So it's that's kind of hard too. And I think that the generation now, we love them enough. We made them independent. We told them they had their own voice and they could say whatever they want to, and that we didn't teach them respect either. A lot of them just disrespect each other. They disrespect
Yes.
anybody. you
Well,
know.
when you got a parent that's a bully, the children will tend to latch on to the bulliness. So they
Right.
will disrespect each other. The children will disrespect each other to get recognition from that bully parent
Or
because that,
just so that they're not the one that's the target. I think
yeah,
sometimes I think my girls do that. They're so afraid of their older sister, they don't want to be hurt,
bully.
right? Yeah, they don't want to be the
Yeah.
source of their anger or whatever.
It's terrible what they've come through. But we've gone to the an hour now. I don't want to take up too much of your time,
Oh
but
God.
uh, I just want to read this last one. It's like they become the parents, and yes, they are trying to control parents, these
Yep.
children, and that's what it's
Exactly.
all about. Control, control, and that way they could have assets. They could
Well, they get
have.
what they want. They
They
get what
get
they
what they
want.
want.
Yeah.
They get what they want.
Yeah.
So, I can't answer all these other, I'd like to, but it's a matter of pride and sin, and they all lack a fear of the Lord. There is no
Oh yeah.
God above. Um,
Yeah, I think a lot of people religious or spirituality, they're still trying to find their way. These young people, and I think eventually they always figure it out, but at what cost? That's the point. Is we all kind of figure it out eventually on our way, but you try not to hurt people. And the fact that my girls would purposely try and hurt me, that's very difficult to swallow. So
yes, me too. Especially my boy. I mean, he was 18 years old when I last saw him. Just turned 18, and
yeah,
the things we we were doing together as a family to be ripped apart, and now that boy was the one that refused to take phone calls, he refused to give them the calls
yeah,
to the sister,
mm,
and he's out there with the Royal Canadian Navy helping millions of people, but he won't help his mother. I mean, that is so heartbreaking
yeah,
because like he's a miracle child. He was born through severe domestic violence. I was held hostage while I went into labor with him, and I got kicked and beaten by the father. And he said, I will take you when I'm ready to the hospital. And I'm thinking, why would you be ready? I'm the one that's ready to give birth. But my son never heard these stories because I wouldn't tell them,
right, yeah,
you know?
yeah,
And I protected them more so that they wouldn't get hurt.
right,
And so there was no bad mouthing the father because I knew if I did, wow, it'd be the end of me. So
right,
my kids only knew good things
yeah.
to become evil inside, and that's the
Well, and
hardest.
that's the way we're supposed to not share. I mean, they're children. They don't
Right.
need to have that information.
That's
And
right.
so it's hard. But we beat ourselves up thinking, well, what could we have done different? My husband says that all the time. He's always looking in the rearview mirror, and I keep saying, what good is that going to do? It's not going to do us any good. We have
No,
to just go on. We have to just try and understand it. I wouldn't say I'm supportive. I don't have an open door policy. I'm going to tell you that right now because you don't get to do this to me. I promised
no,
myself long ago I was not going to be a victim anymore for anyone, even my kids. And however, I want them to always know that if they can treat me with respect, they will always be welcome in my home as long as they can
exactly.
treat me decent. And but if they can't, then they're better off where they're at, I guess. And
Right.
and that's hard. It's hard for me to get those words out to say that because no mother ever wants to say that about their kids, but they're
No.
teaching me how to unlove them,
Yeah, to let
in
go.
the ways. Yeah. And
Yeah.
we all have to let go at some point, but you just don't ever expect it would be this, forever.
Yeah. Or the way it happened.
Right.
Right.
My husband and I both say that we don't think they'll ever be able to admit that they're wrong or ever be able to, even if they didn't admit that they're wrong, just say, I love you. let's talk about this. Let's
Right.
do something, you know.
Well, they're adapting to the narcissistic personality because the narcissist will not admit
And
to
their
being
friends,
wrong.
you know, all their peers encourage this. It's all
Yes.
over social media. It
Yeah.
makes me sick to my stomach what
Oh,
their
I know.
kids say on social media.
Oh, it's terrible.
Um, it makes me sick, beyond sick. But you
Yes.
know, you try and have some humor with it. Marianne and I were joking. I was going to say this earlier about getting a T-shirt. You know, we think of funny things that we could
Oh,
put on
my.
a T-shirt, and I can end this way, this interview too, with this funny
Okay.
stuff. Is we're gonna make like voodoo dolls, you know, like little just random voodoo dolls, and put
I have one in the drawer.
CPS worker on the front of it. We're gonna do that. And then our other thing was we want to make t-shirts that say, I love my ungrateful children.
Yes.
Because I feel that, you know, that's a perfect sentiment for it. You know, that would tell a lot of people a lot of things, you know.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
you gotta have to have, you know, this is horrifying and it's devastating and it just changes your life and makes you don't where you don't even want to live or go on, but you have to try and find some kind of humor somewhere because your
Yes,
life is still worth my life's still worth something.
that's right.
And
Yeah. The sad part of it is their grandparents are opting out now, they're passing away. My mom's 92 years old,
yeah,
hasn't seen her grandchildren in 19 years. And I mean, every day she'll ask me, "Have you heard? Have you heard?" I mean, it's so hard to
yeah,
hear those words coming from her because she always says, "You're such a good mom. You spoiled them."
yeah,
But I say to her in that same sentence, "Mom, it sounds like I did something wrong.
yeah.
I
But
spoiled them."
what is the difference then? You know, I mean, get very bitter about that. I try not to be when I see other people with their kids, and I think, what did they do any different than
Than
you
we
know?
did.
That's how unfair this is, and how.
Yeah.
But you can't dwell on that either. You know,
No,
you really
you
can't.
can't.
So
No.
it's
So,
something we'll all get through as long as we all support each other. And
yes. Well, you know what, Heidi, thank you for coming on. We could have you back for a part 2 or something.
yeah,
You get any kind of help for us out there, we would really appreciate it.
absolutely,
So,
I would love that.
your last words to the viewers out there.
Hang in there. You're not alone, and try it and focus on at least one thing that you like to do or that you want to do that doesn't involve this every day. That would be what I'd try and say. Focus on yourself a little bit because, gosh, you know, you have a lot of life left and you're worth it. And support others that are going through this and talk about it. And we'll all get through this.
Yes. Yes. Well,
Yep.
thank you to hang in there for a second. I just want to say thanks to all the viewers out there. Please share this program tonight. This will be very helpful to many out there. So alienated parents, grandparents, alienated children, don't give up. You need each other in order to become whole, because I know children are suffering from severe mental health issues only because they can't let go of what has happened. And if they, just step forward and say, "Sorry, mom, sorry, dad," or not even say sorry, but pick up the phone and say, "I love you. Shit
Let's talk.
happened
Yeah.
and let's move forward." That's all it takes. But until next time, everybody out there, thank you for tuning in on Let's Talk Real Talk from Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. And we have Heidi uh, Weber from Minnesota, USA. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I'm a lot of S's in there. But thank you for tuning in, everyone. And Heidi, thank you again.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. From Molly and me, good night, everyone. Enjoy the Sunday evening. Bye.